My name is Yonten, and I am faculty at the School of Law, Raffle University. Speaker of the day, Ms. Rachna Bakru, and Advocate Girish Bhatia, Dr. Justice Meena V. Gombar, Chief Patron, School of Law, Dr. Divarkar Goli, the President of Raffle University, Deans, Head International Trade Association, our sincere participants, my fellow colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to host this webinar today. On behalf of School of Law, Raffle University, Nimrana, I extend a very warm welcome to each one of you. May I introduce our speaker of the day. Ms. Rachna Bakru is a partner with RNA Technology and IP Attorney. She holds a diploma in business administration and bachelor's degree in law from Delhi University. She currently heads the dispute resolution teams of the firm, heavily involved in IP enforcement work, including civil and criminal litigations. She has over 20 years of extensive experience managing IP matters in India. She has worked on portfolios of large international companies, and her industry expertise includes pharmaceuticals and information technology. She advises her clients on issues related to data protection, software piracy, domain disputes, and online infringement. Ms. Rachna is a member of Bar Council of India and a registered patent agent. She has been appointed as a patent implementer by the Indian government to help set up and to obtain patent protection. And to introduce about our second speaker, Advocate Girish Bhatia is an associate at RNA Technology and IP Attorneys. He is a part of a dispute resolution team of the firm. He was also invited for a guest lecture in Amity University, Rajasthan. Further, he has been appointed as a member of expert panel of Center for Legal Research and Studies. In order to understand more and know more information about this program, log on to www.inta.org. Now, I would like to invite and hand over this session to our speaker to share us about International Trade Association on-rail campaign. Over to you, Madam and Sir.
Thank you very much, Yonten, for your kind introduction. It's such a pleasure to be here with the students and the faculty of Raffles University. We're very grateful for the opportunity, and we hope that the students are able to take away something from our session today. So as Yonten introduced me, my name is Rachna Bakru, and I'm a partner with a law firm called RNA Technology and IP. Our firm specializes in intellectual property law, which is trademarks, patents, designs, copyright, geographical indications, data privacy, and all the allied intellectual property rights. We help our clients protect those rights and enforce them against third parties and handle all the gamut of activities under this umbrella. I'm representing today an international organization which is called INTA. It is basically a body that comprises of trademark attorneys who are based around the globe. The organization INTA is actually located in New York in the USA, and it's a not-for-profit organization, and its objective is basically to advocate trademark rights of brand owners and educate and create awareness on the rights and do advancement in this field. So there are about more than 10,000 members of the INTA organization who are based around the world. There are conferences and education sessions and roundtables that keep happening around the world, around the year, in different parts, in different jurisdictions. And then there are committees within the INTA where trademark attorneys like me and Girish, we serve on those committees to kind of, basically research on what are the possibilities in this field in the future. So they are ahead of the game. We discuss topics which we foresee in the future, not only in the present. So that's what makes it very interesting. I am chair for the subcommittee of Unreal campaign, and I look after the jurisdictions in South Asia, Middle East, and Africa. Unreal campaign is basically a committee within INTA that helps create awareness amongst students within the age group of 14 to 23, again based around the world, on basically harmful effects of buying counterfeit products, on education about what trademark rights are and why are they important, and what counterfeiting can mean to the economy as well as to the consumer and the brands. So if you bear with me for 2 minutes, I will run the presentation. I will share my screen. I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, ma'am.
So as I just now introduced about what Unreal campaign is all about, it is a committee within INTA that creates awareness amongst students around the world on harmful effects of buying counterfeit products, and basically educate them on being a smart buyer or consumer, making smart decisions when they grow up as adults or when they have their jobs and they're living their lives on their own. That's what Unreal campaign is about. This is a slide which again says what's Unreal campaign, which this video was actually shot at the campus of a university, asking students about what was their understanding of counterfeit products. There's a little bit of unclear portions in this, so please bear with us and let me know if you're not able to hear, if there's any problem in the audio.
You know what a counterfeit good is? Oh, no. No.
To be fair, no, I didn't until you told me. Is it like a fake product? When you buy something that they say is like from a certain brand, but then it's not?
It's making fake goods that aren't from the real company and are just like the same material. Do you think counterfeiting is bad?
I mean, yeah, I do. I think first off, it's illegal.
The person that actually took time to make it gets no money from it or any type of reward for what they've created.
I understand that people have to make their money sometimes. The laborers are paid like minimum wage, or they might not be like safe regulations in like the factories they made it. Not good.
It's just a disappointment. Like, it's sad.
I think people kind of tell it's counterfeit. It's like a little bit cheaper quality looking. And I don't really think it's a bad thing. I think some people do it because they like, oh, I need to have that kind of brand or something like that. It'll make it look better and stuff. So maybe that's why they want to have it. And like, I don't really like hold it against them.
Next time on the Unreal Video Blog. How can you tell if a product is fake?
Find out what's real or unreal.
I think there was a little bit of problem on the audio in this slide, in this video, but we will be discussing on what counterfeiting is in the following slides. This was basically asking students on what was their understanding of a counterfeit product.
One day I went to this famous flea market in Delhi, and I couldn't help but notice the amazing prices they were offering there. I went up to the salesman. He was constantly telling me about how the products are very real. Even though I was in a bit of doubt, but I was lured in by the fact that the prices were so low, so I just ended up buying the products. Within an hour of applying the makeup, my face turned all red and I had rashes all over my face. I realized the mistake I had made and had to pay the price for buying something unreal.
Find out what's real or unreal.
So this was an experience shared by our youth on what was their experience of buying a counterfeit product. Now we'll discuss, a few basics of what trademark law is all about and what are the trademarks. I would like this presentation to be interactive, so it will be nice if everyone, all the students can participate and share their knowledge and understanding of what, the questions mentioned on the slide. So do we have students also linked in the Zoom? Can we talk to them through the chat, Yonjan?
Yes, madam, you can, ma'am.
Okay. So would anybody like to share their understanding of what is a trademark?
We have Aditya Bhatnagar who wishes to answer this particular question. Yeah, Aditya, can you please unmute yourself? Aditya, you are on unmute. Can you please say? Any other student who wishes to say or talk about what a trademark and what a mark is? If you're aware in the market and you buy products.
I think there's some issue in unmuting, so I will just go ahead and maybe in the next question, students can participate. So basically, the common understanding about a trademark is that it is a word mark, which is able to represent basically the goods of one company and able to distinguish the goods of one company from the other. However, it's not actually limited. The trademarks are not limited to word marks, but they can be a logo, they can be a device, a design, and a whole lot of things are actually capable of getting a trademark registration. So anything basically that can be represented graphically and is capable of distinguishing goods of one person from the other actually can be registered as a trademark. So we will discuss what are the various kinds of trademarks. This is an example, Big Mac, of a word mark. There can be many other word marks, favorite ones of the students. If anybody wants to share. If anyone wants to share their favorite trademarks, which are word marks, you can type in the chat. I think let's use the chat more for conversation and not unmute, so we can keep going smoothly. So students can type their favorite word marks in the chat. And I'll move ahead. So this is an example of a device. This is a shell device, which is represented in this form, a colorful combination of yellow and red. Now this particular device is actually capable of distinguishing goods of shell from other companies, its competition. And when the consumer looks at this particular device, even though there is no word mentioned, they are able to relate and recollect that the goods are coming from the company called Shell. So that's how a trademark or device mark is capable of getting registration as a trademark, when it has the capacity to remind the consumer that even though there's no word represented here, that this is a trademark or this is the device mark that belongs to a particular company. Again, if in this image, you can see that PepsiCo label is there. So this is called a trade dress, basically. And this label can be registered as a trademark as it is. Again, because even if there is no word mentioned here, the consumer will be able to relate to this particular packaging or the trade dress with PepsiCo company and no one else. So that's how it is capable of being registered as a trademark. Then we have service marks. Again, when you ask a common person, they only know that, what a trademark is, but most people don't know what a service mark is. So trademark is, while the trademark is able to represent the products, service mark can actually be used for, companies, or, for example, Raffles is a university. It doesn't have any product. It has a service to provide. It is into the education services, education business. So if Raffles was to register their mark, then it will not be a trademark. It will be called a service mark. So there are many other examples. For example, the banking industry, the Standard Chartered Bank or HDFC Bank, or name any other bank. So banking services, financial services, hospital services, Medanta, Artemis, they will all be in the called the service mark. And there are many other examples like the hotel industry, then IT software industry. So irrespective whether, if a company is providing services, then their mark will be called a service mark. And if they are providing products, then their mark will be called a trademark. So that's how you distinguish. Then other than word mark, device mark, and designs and label marks, there are non-traditional trademarks which have come up within the last couple of years. The non-traditional trademarks basically can cover, as I said, anything that can be graphically represented and is capable of distinguishing goods of one person from another can be registered as a trademark. So non-traditional trademarks are, like color in this slide, this royal blue color. It's not a royal blue color. It's called egg blue. It's a Tiffany's mark, basically. Now this color has got registration in the UK because over there the consumer associates this particular color with Tiffany company and no one else. So that's how they've been able to get registration for this color. Although colors are generic and they should be technically available to everybody to use, and no company should actually get monopoly over use of a particular color so as to stop others from using that particular color. However, if a company X has been using a particular color for over a period of time and has established goodwill and reputation to that extent that the consumer is associating that particular color only with the particular company, then it is capable of registration. So basically, huge amount of evidence is required to actually claim trademark rights over a particular color. And it's not very easy to actually get monopoly over a particular color and get the trademark registration. So this is an example of Tiffany's blue color, which has got registration in the UK. Then there is example of this Perrier bottle. This is an example of green color, which is associated with Perrier. You may have seen this water available in the markets. So Perrier has got registration for this particular green color because, so even if there is no word mark mentioned on this bottle, the consumers are able to associate with this color with Perrier water, and that's how the company is able to prove that there is such a strong brand recollection for the consumer that when they come through this color for water, they are able to think about no one else but Perrier. So that's how they are able to actually get registration for this particular color. Otherwise, as I said, colors are generic and no one can actually monopolize them and stop others from using it. But however, if there is such a strong recollection and goodwill and reputation established by the company, then they can actually get registration in the color as well. Again, Nivea, this blue color, many of you would have seen since many generations have been using this cream Nivea. If you remove the word Nivea from this particular container, blue color container, the consumers will still be able to associate this box, this container, blue color container with Nivea cream. So that's how the company has been able to get registration over this blue color or claim trademark rights over the blue color. Again, one of this example of non-traditional trademarks is the 3D marks. that's something new which has come up in India as well, and a number of registrations have been granted for 3D marks. As you can see, there is this McDonald's. The canopy is of yellow color in the front of the restaurant and the side balcony. This has got registration as a 3D mark. So why are trademarks important for you as a consumer? Would anybody like to answer this in the chat? So why are trademarks important for you as a consumer? Basically, as a consumer, when you go into the market, you look for a product which you like, which satisfies your requirements in terms of the price, in terms of the quality, in terms of the aesthetics, the design component, comfort. And when you come across, if imagine a world where there were no trademarks and you go to the market and there's no label, it's all mixed up. It will be very difficult for you to find the product that you actually want. So these trademarks are actually names given to products, and those names actually speak about the quality, about the design, about the reputation, where is it coming from. So that just single word or a logo or a color is able to tell you so much, give you so much information about a product. So that's the significance of trademarks, and that's why they are so important to the consumer. Why are trademarks important for companies? Again, for the same reason, the companies are able to, by using a particular trademark or a logo or a slogan, the companies are able to convey the information to the consumer that what does it contain, what's the quality that you're expecting. So if a product is coming from an X company that that, they are really good in terms of quality of the product that they will manufacture, then you have a certain level of expectation, but at the same time, it has to suit your budget. And so this is the information that a trademark is, the companies are able to convey to the consumer about a particular product that they are providing. What is counterfeiting? If anybody wants to answer that, otherwise I will go ahead and then we can take the questions in the end. So basically, counterfeiting is a breach of trademark rights where the third parties or the company that doesn't have rights over a trademark has copied the product packaging, has copied the trademark, has copied everything in entirety. I will show you some examples in the following slides of counterfeiting and how is it different from infringement. So these are the examples of some of the products, some of the trademarks that were violated. As you can see, Starbucks versus Starbucks Coffee and Co. So in this, the third party has actually has tried to, cleverly copied the trademark Starbucks, has misspelled it, and has copied the logo as well, has to some extent copied the color green as well from the Starbucks, has basically, copied almost everything to confuse the customer. Again, in the red label old Scotch whiskey, the third party has almost copied everything. Johnny Walker has become Johnny Walker, and red label has been misspelled. So the color combination and rest of the trade dress has been copied in entirety. In the fourth example, Adidas has been inspired by Adidas. So when a trademark is copied in entirety, the trade dress is copied and applied on the same products, like Adidas is meant for shoes or apparels, and it's applied on those products, then it amounts to counterfeiting, and it is actually a criminal offense. How is counterfeiting different from infringement? So as I said, when the trademark, trade dress, color combination is copied in entirety and applied for the same products, then it is counterfeiting. However, if the trademark is only copied or misspelled, then it is trademark infringement. So for example, if the trade dress is not copied, if in this example, there was no, in the example of red label, if For example, red label was only misspelled, the red color was not copied, Johnny Walker was not copied, and other elements were not copied, then it would only amount to trademark infringement, which is also, for which also there are provisions in the Trademark Act, and it is a breach of trademark rights of a company. So how does counterfeiting affect you as a consumer? Anybody would like to answer that? This is an example of a Louis Vuitton bag, which is a fake bag, which is not original. So the counterfeiting can actually affect the consumer in a variety of ways. For example, if you were to, if you accidentally bought this Louis Vuitton bag, which is fake, the chances are bleak though that you will end up doing that, because Louis Vuitton bag is so expensive that most people would know that they are buying a fake product. But so this may not be a good example, but there are incidents when a consumer gets confused and deceived into buying a counterfeit product. And in that case, you end up spending much more money than you should have actually spent on that product. You will get poor quality. There can be health hazard, risk to your safety. For example, if you buy fake medicines, pharmaceuticals, electronics, food items, consumer goods, then there are strong chances, and even shoes. Then it can have an impact on your health and safety. It can have disastrous consequences, for example, cosmetics and pharmaceuticals. Shoes as well, if you buy a fake shoe, it can actually have an impact on your spine and on your ankle and your foot in the long run. It may be okay in the short run, but it can have impact in the long run. And then there are no refunds or warranties available on counterfeit products. So basically, when a consumer is buying willfully or unknowingly a counterfeit product, then it can have consequences for that. And it is never a good idea, because there are more cons than pros of buying a counterfeit product. It may be cheaper in the short run, but it's likely not to serve the purpose, sometimes even in the short run, as we will see in the following slides and the videos.
So I'm 16 and I want everything branded. It's all about the image after all. But this chase for image ended recently when I was embarrassed in front of all my friends. I had bought a pair of fake branded shoes from a nearby market. It was almost 1/10 the real price. I went running with all my friends, and while I was kind of showing off my new shoes, my new shoe broke and I fell flat on the ground. And I understood why real remains real and fake is always fake.
Find out what's real or unreal.
So this was an experience shared by a young boy about buying a counterfeit product and how it embarrassed him, as well as had an impact on the activity that he was doing. So that was about the consumer. How does it impact you as a consumer if you buy a counterfeit product? How does the counterfeiting affect your community? I think this thought, very rarely we think as a consumer that we only, think that if we buy this, we are saving money. If you're buying a counterfeit product, what's the big deal? It's so cheap as compared to the original. However, as a consumer, as I explained, that there are consequences of buying a counterfeit product, and the money that we save in the short run, we actually spending more, because then if we have to buy the product all over again, as the experience shared in the previous slide by the young guy. But apart from the consumer, the companies, the counterfeiting has a very serious consequences over the community as well. As you know, that the small little players who are indulging into manufacturing counterfeit products, they necessarily do not have the infrastructure to manufacture goods. So the quality prepared by them, manufactured by them, is generally poor. The conditions where the products are manufactured are very unhygienic and unsafe. Not only for the products that are being manufactured over there. For example, if pharmaceutical products or the cosmetics are prepared and manufactured in unhygienic places and unsafe places, then it is likely to have an impact on the consumer as well. but also because these small little players, the working conditions over there are very poor. They do not pay their employees. They do not have safety, as a safe environment for the employees. And most of them are actually engaging child labor and also harming the environment because the poor conditions where the products are being manufactured, they do not necessarily care about how their manufacturing activities are having an impact on the environment and the carbon footprint that it is generating, which most of the big companies who are manufacturing original products providing safe employment conditions, working conditions for their employees, paying their salaries. They do not have all these after effects of their activities on the environment and the community at large. So that's one part of it. And again, these small players are mostly, conducting their activities in an illegal manner. They do not pay taxes. So that's a loss to the government. If the taxes are paid by the companies, then the government can then utilize that money for public welfare and in building the infrastructure of the company. There is a big amount of unemployment because, as I said, that the small, illegal manufacturers are actually employing child labor or employing people not paying their wages on time. So if we continue to support those activities, those illegal activities, then somewhere it is resulting into job losses as well in the organized sector. Again, because they're not paying taxes and all the illegal activities, they are able to make money quickly. The margins are large, and that money is actually used sometimes to fund terrorism as well. So those are the harmful effects of counterfeiting on the community at large. Have you ever seen counterfeit goods? I think it's a no-brainer in a developing country that if we have seen a counterfeit good, almost each one of us would have actually encountered willfully or unknowingly a counterfeit product, either online or in the flea markets. You go to Sarojini Nagar. I haven't been there in a really long time, but I'm sure the counterfeit products are still available in those flea markets even now. But if anybody wants to share their experience of either knowingly or unknowingly having bought a counterfeit product and what was their experience, then please feel free to share. I will wait for a couple of seconds and then move forward if there's no one to share their experience. I think even the faculty can share if the students, if there's any issue with the connectivity with the students. So I'll keep going in case if nobody wants to share their experience, I'll keep going, and maybe at the end of the presentation, we can have a chat. So this is an example of a headphone by Dr. Dre. The usual cost of a Dr. Dre headphone is between $300 to $600. And this is a special offer online where the headphone is being offered for $20. And it's like, it's an auction where if you buy this product within 3 hours, you get it at this price. So this is kind of a very clear example of a counterfeit product being available online and luring the customer into, cheap product that they get a really good deal if they buy it, but it is actually doubtful whether this product is original. So it is, as a safeguard, it is better to buy the products, especially if you're buying such a product, then it is better to buy from the official channels, either from their official website or through an authorized dealer. So that's one way of avoiding buying a counterfeit product. if you do not intend to. This is an example of a real and a fake Nike shoe. There are small little differences in this two examples. I think when if you come across a physical example, it is much better, much easier to analyze whether it is a counterfeit product or an original. But sometimes the quality and the copying is so clever that it is hard for the consumer to make out whether this is a counterfeit product. But there are distinguishing features like the stitch is not that refined in the fake product. The swish device of the Nike is again not as it should be. This is an example of mobile phone chargers, which I think at some point everyone would have ended up buying because they are so cheap and the original chargers are expensive. However, this again can actually turn out to be more expensive and unsafe for the consumer, because when we buy a fake charger, we see that it doesn't have life at all. Sometimes it just doesn't work even for a few days. So we have to buy again the original ones. And also it is unsafe because the branded chargers are actually made specific to a particular device. And all the devices, electronic devices, have a different level of energy requirement, whereas the generic chargers are releasing the same amount of energy for every device. So sometimes the energy requirement is higher or lower, and if the device is getting getting more energy than it actually needs, then it can get heated up, and there can be a fire due to the overheating of the device. So again, this has got a very serious consequence of buying fake chargers. How are trademarks protected from counterfeiting? So in India, I mean, every country has different regulations, and trademark law is somewhat uniform in terms of protection. And there is, most of the jurisdictions have similar protection, but when it comes to legal remedies to enforce the trademark rights, it is different in most of the countries. In India, we have a couple of remedies for the brand owners, for the trademark owners, in case anyone is violating their trademark. So we have customs, border control measures. There is a custom notification that protects counterfeit products from entering into the country. So if a brand owner or a registered proprietor files an application at the customs that for registration of their intellectual property, it can be a trademark, it can be a copyright and a design as well. And when that application is filed, it is valid for 5 years. What the custom does is, when there is a consignment that comes in and they suspect that this consignment can actually contain counterfeit products for that particular proprietor. For example, Adidas, if Adidas has filed an application at the customs to monitor the goods that are coming into the country, then customs will actually keep a watch on the counterfeit products that are coming into the country and suspend that shipment, inform the trademark owner that why don't you come and have a look at these products, inspect these goods and tell us whether this is original or counterfeit. And then accordingly, depending on what is the response of the trademark owner, the customs will either release that consignment or it will seize those goods. So that's the procedure which is followed at the borders. It is only applicable to importing of the goods and not to the export of the goods, but it is a very useful way to stop the counterfeit products from coming into the country. And then there is a civil enforcement option. So in case of counterfeit products or infringements, the proprietor of a trademark can actually file a petition, a lawsuit, along with an application for injunction, trademark injunction against the third party, against the defendant, restraining him from using that particular trademark. So the lawsuit can be filed at any civil court that has the jurisdiction, the territorial jurisdiction to try that suit. Then there is criminal enforcement, which again, the registered proprietor can actually go to the criminal courts and file a petition for infringement or counterfeit products, counterfeiting or trademark infringement as well. And also file an application, which can be done for both for civil enforcement and criminal enforcement. File an application for conducting of raids, in which case the court appoints a local commissioner who will go to the premises of the defendant and make a seizure of the infringing goods or the counterfeit products and file their report into the court. Then there are police raids, which the police conducts suo moto. As you may have read in the newspapers several times, such a big stock of pharmaceutical medicines was seized by the police in so and so city. So police actually keeps watch in the markets. Especially they are more active for the goods like electronics and pharmaceutical products, where there can be disastrous consequences if the consumer ends up buying counterfeit products. So the police does raids on their own as well to protect the consumer, basically. Then there is Drugs and Cosmetics Act, under which also there is a provision specific to the pharmaceuticals and cosmetics, where there is the activity of counterfeiting. Then a commissioner from Drugs and Cosmetics Department can actually visit and conduct the raids as well. This is the example of a counterfeit and an original product. Would anybody like to answer which one is counterfeit according to them and which one is real? They can do it in the chat. This is another example which is very clear, that the left-hand side Taza, Group 1's Taza, is the original packaging, and on the right-hand side is very blurry, as you can see. That is a fake one. This is again, on the left-hand side is the original Castrol CRB Plus lubricant. As you can see, on the right-hand side is the duplicate one, which has copied the trade dress, the color scheme, the placement of features. However, they have just changed the trademark. So what happens is, when an illiterate person comes across these two products, they find the right-hand side one cheaper. They feel it's similar looking. It's a look-alike product, basically. And they end up buying it either because it's cheap or because they feel that it's going to be the same because, it looks so similar. This is another example of an original and a counterfeit shoe. Again, more or less, this is a video that we shot at the time of conducting a raid for seizing counterfeit products in a factory. So with the help of the police, this raid was conducted. I just wanted to give you a flavor of what it looks like, in practice. This is an image that was taken at one of the manufacturing site of a refiller, basically. So this is pharmaceutical medicine, which is being refilled in unhygienic conditions, as you can see on the left-hand side. This is a refilling unit of lubricants, fake Castrol products, being refilled into the containers, drums.
We were out in the market, the entire family, shopping in Delhi summers. Everyone was tired and thirsty. So I just ran down to a local shop and I bought a mineral water for ₹20. Familiar price and very familiar shape and packaging. It did satisfy our thirst, but everyone has the same remark. It tastes bitter. Nothing really happened, but our fears could have come true despite paying for safe water. A lesson learned was that one should always look closely into the details while buying anything, even if it's water.
Find out what's real or unreal.
That was a
Welcome to the streets of New York City, where all the latest trends, styles, and fashions are born, which is why having the right look is a must.
Living in the city could be expensive, and I'm a student, so I can't always afford my favorite brand name products. However, I did have enough money for this $10 bag I passed from the vendor earlier today. So why not save some money? What's the big deal?
Let me tell you why it's a big deal. By purchasing counterfeit items, you're buying into an illegal business that costs our economy billions of dollars each year. It also costs around 2.5 million jobs every year. This could be your neighbors, your friends, or even your parents' job. Beyond that, counterfeiting is linked to child labor and organized crime. Where do you think those fake products come from? Where do you think the money goes? Now, do you really think those $5 sunglasses were worth it?
Counterfeit goods go beyond clothing and accessories. They also include toys, baby formula, medication, electronics, cigarettes, and even airplane or automobile parts. In nearly every instance, counterfeit goods are not made with the same high-quality materials or standards as regular products. These things can lead to serious health and safety concerns for the consumer, like you and me.
You're right. I'm never buying counterfeit again.
Find out what's real or unreal.
Now we have the most interesting part of the presentation. It's game time. I will pass it on to my colleague Girish, who will take you through this spot a fake game where you have to identify counterfeit from original. Over to you, Girish.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderful presentation and session. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Sure. So I'm very sure that everyone has gone through a fake product in the market and has witnessed some. Not only the products of a higher grade, but also the products of a lower grade as well. So everyone has have an experience of masala magic of just 5 rupees. The counterfeiters are ready in the market to basically make money out of it. They are selling the products out of like 3 rupees or 4 rupees. So it's not about the price of the product, but it's all about the quality of the products on which you need to compromise. So let's begin with the game. So these are the 2 shoes in front of me. What do you guys think? Which is the fake one and which is the real one? You can unmute yourself and speak. They are look-alike products, nearly similar to each other, but a slight difference in both the products. We'll wait for like 10 seconds unless we have an answer.
Right one is the sir. Right one is the correct product, and left one is the copy one.
Sorry, sir, can't hear you, please. The right
Sir,
one is?
Right one.
Is the real one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how did you figure it out it's the real one?
Sir, because first look at the color and look at the symbol, and it is not properly given in the left one. The symbol is not properly shown, whereas in the right one, you can clearly see the symbol.
You have a very close eye then, to be very honest, because the right one is the real one and the left one is the unreal one. So the pointers that you mentioned were very on point. One is the logo, which is basically on the real one, you see the darker side of it. And on the unreal one, it's not the darker side, as well as it's a bit light on the color combination as well. And also there's one more thing about the lace part, if you see. So there's a different color on that lace as well. Now we'll move to another example. I guess this is a very easy one, but let's try to find out which one is the real one and which one is the unreal one. Anyone who wishes to answer this? I guess it's a very, very easy one because since most of us have gone through the Puma shoes. We'll wait for 10 seconds. So hearing none, I'll just tell you the right one is the real one, which was very obvious. and the left one was an unreal one. The first and the foremost thing that we look out for is a logo. If the logo is basically a right logo, which is being mentioned on that particular product, if you see the unreal one, the logo is not commonly used by the company. And also the placing of that particular logo. Most of the shoes that you have seen of Puma have a different styling. Now the next one, this is a bit tough one, I would say, coming from an easier one. So which one is the real one, or which one is the unreal one? Anyone? Same company, same packaging, same product placing, same image. Anyone? So we'll wait for 10 seconds and we'll wait for the answers.
Left one real because of the watermark.
Right one, sir.
Sorry, can you please repeat, because there are two people speaking. Aditya, you were speaking something?
Yes, sir. So I believe left one real because of the watermark, clearly visible watermark.
Okay, there was another person, I guess Som, you were speaking something?
I was telling about the right one, but I guess I'm not sure. Right one, I guess.
Okay, let's give a guess on this. What do you say? The right one? Okay, so Som says right and Aditya says left one is real. Let's see. Aditya, you got it right because of the markings and because of the packaging. See, there's a huge gap and huge difference on the packaging quality and the color combination that is being used. One is using a lighter shade of blue, the other one is using a brighter side of it. So it's not very easy to find out which product is real and which is fake unless you see that particular product in actual. But then it gives you a clear hint at once you buy that particular product or once you visually see that particular product. So yeah, one thing you need to remember at every point of time, if you come across any particular article or any particular product, you need to check whether it's basically a real product or an unreal product. The one thing that always be at the other counterfeiters will compromise on is the quality, because you cannot get a 10,000 rupees product for like 100 or 500 rupees. So do not compromise on the product, do not compromise on the pricing, and in case if you come across any product in the market, don't hesitate to approach the companies, the MNCs. They have these different portals through which you can file a complaint. You can send a screenshot or you can send an image on those particular portals and tell them that this is the area that has basically the counterfeit products of your particular brand. So in that particular case, your identity remains the same. Nobody is ready to compromise on the identity, and the MNCs also listen to that particular thing. So yeah, remember, do not compromise. So we all thank our partners who have been in this particular campaign throughout the journey, the Amazon, Novartis, Alibaba, and many more MNC companies who are there in the market, who are ready to give a best product to the consumers rather than compromising on the quality. So yeah, thank you so much. Time for some questions.
Thank you, Girish. Let's ask the audience if there are any questions. We have 5 more minutes left.
So one question that I saw basically was from Mohammed Shanin. Ma'am, his question was, kindly discuss about the 3D trademarks future in India.
Right. So there are incidents where, there is no direct word mark being used, but there are, shape marks or the 3-dimensional trademarks, as I discussed the example. We have in fact done one case for the 3D mark where we got injunction from the court. So when you say future of 3D mark, we are happy that our trademark registry now provides for provides protection for 3D marks, and which means that we can actually enforce our clients' rights against third parties who are violating those trademarks. And earlier there was no protection in India, so it was only a simple unfair trade competition or a passing off case would lie. But now we can actually claim trademark infringement because the registry is able to grant registration over a 3D mark. But that said, it is not easy to get those kind of registrations over a shape or a 3D mark. As I said, it requires a huge amount of evidence to establish that you have acquired distinctiveness in that particular three-dimensional mark, and then only the registry will grant you a registration, which you can then enforce. So anything, for the companies, if they're able to register their intellectual property, because there's so much of hard work and creativity that goes into intellectual property, and if it's getting protected and if they're able to enforce, then it is a bright future, I think. I hope that answers your question. Girish, if you want to add something, please feel free to do that.
Sure, ma'am. As rightly mentioned by ma'am about the 3D trademarks, basically there's a small distinction between a 3D trademark and when it comes to design, because both the things are focused on the same place. So there's a small distinction that one needs to basically focus on in the registration of the 3D trademarks. Though they are registrable currently in India as per the guidelines, however, the only difference what takes away that from designs is that one should not get that particular 3D mark in public. So the only difference is about the public. Once the same is in the public, it's always said that you go for a trademark, but then if it's not in the public, it always we suggest getting that in under designs law. So any other questions that we are looking for?
Excuse me, I may have one question.
Yeah, Aditya, please.
Aditya Bhatnagar. Yes, we talked about the unconventional trademarks. Like an unconventional trademark was given to a bottle of green color on the combination of green colors. So we come across many bottles or many green color drinks in the market. So won't giving a trademark to one particular bottle on the basis of color, won't it monopolize the market? And won't allow all the other green color bottles to be supplied in the market? Thank you.
I would like ma'am to answer this particular thing, because non-conventional trademark is a very interesting topic, to be very honest. And there's a lot of research that has gone since there's a lot of material that is not easily available on these times. Ma'am, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Girish. So currently in India, we do not have a provision for single color trademark registration. Only color combinations can be registered. For example, Colgate, you may have seen red and white color they use for toothpaste and toothbrushes. So that kind of a combination. Standard Chartered Bank uses green and blue, I think, the color combination. So we've got that registered. But for single colors, currently our trademark law doesn't provide, because as I said, that it requires a huge amount of evidence to support that, that particular color is only, the consumers will only distinguish and recognize that particular color with a specific trader. And as I said, because colors are generic, they should be available to everyone. It is difficult, to monopolize those. As Aditya, you correctly mentioned, green color bottle for Perrier, green color, it's not granted registration in India, but it is overseas. It has got registration in their home country. And I cannot comment on whether they have other green color bottles in those markets and whether Perrier is enforcing its rights against those companies who are using green colors for bottle. But, as I said earlier as well, the non-conventional trademarks like a single color trademark will be very, very specific to a particular product and a particular good. So for example, if you're talking about green color for Perrier, then it will be only available for the, I think Perrier is a sparkling water. So it will be available only for that particular product, and it will not be available for any other mineral water or aerated drinks. So that's where the distinction lies. So you may have seen green color bottles in India and maybe in overseas as well, who are providing some other drinks. So the idea is that consumers should not get confused. The consumer should be clear that whether they are buying Perrier when they are coming across a green color bottle, or they are buying other companies' products. So that distinction should be there. The consumer should not get confused if a particular trader has been granted a trademark registration. So that's how it goes. I hope I have answered your question, Aditya.
Just to add what Rachna ma'am mentioned about the non-conventional trademarks, if you think it's only limited to the colors, I would just correct you, because it's not limited to colors. The recent ones is scent. So any perfume that you smell is also kind of a non-conventional trademark in the market. There are companies who are getting these registered. Apart from this, the jingle sounds that you hear in the market, any Britannia sound that you can recall, is also non-conventional trademark. So anything and everything which is very common to the industry and which is unique in the market it falls under the non-conventional trademarks.
Yeah,
so
thanks, Girish. Thanks, Girish, for reminding that. I wanted to mention as well that in India we have provisions for registration of sound marks. For example, if you remember, the Nokia tune used to be very distinctive. Then there's ting ting ting, those kind of tunes. When you actually hear them, you are able to associate that this is Nokia phone. We are talking about ICCI jingle or any other company. So those kind of sound recordings are also registrable as a sound mark, and the Indian Trademark Registry has granted registrations for that. All you need to do is have a lot of evidence that this belongs to you and provide a sound recording. Again, as Girish said, the non-conventional trademark also includes smell marks, and most of the perfume companies, because there was a lot of counterfeiting observed in the perfume industry, in the fragrances. There are certain perfumes like J'adore of Christian Dior and many other popular ones. They have a very unique fragrance, and those were being copied. So in India, we do not have provision for smell marks yet, but in Europe and UK and some other countries, they have given protection to certain specific fragrances as well as smell marks.
Thank you so much, ma'am. This definitely clears it out.
Any other question that we're looking for? Mohammed Hassan has raised his hand. Yes, please, you may ask. So I guess, Mr. Yonton, the PPT was Hassan, you wish to ask something? Okay, so Mr. Yonton, this was from our side, and we assume that the PPT was very much informative directly, which cleared many doubts. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir and madam. Indeed, it was very insightful. It was kind of blessing for us. And for vote of thanks, I would like to request our Miss Sabiha. Over to you, ma'am. Yes.
Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Good afternoon to one and all present here. My name is Sabiha Khan, and I'm an assistant professor at School of Law, Raffles University, Nimrana. So it is my honor and privilege to extend a vote of thanks on this moment. So I would like to thank Mr. Yonten, Assistant Professor of School of Law, the convener of this webinar and giving me the opportunity to extend my vote of thanks. So on the behalf of School of Law, Raffles University, Nimrana, I would like to thank our distinguished guest speakers of the day, Ms. Rasna Bakru, and partner with the RNA Technology and IP Attorney, and Mr. Grish Bhatia, associate with RNA Technology and IP Attorney. Speakers of today's webinar for his thought-provoking deliberation on the topic, International Trademark Association Unreal Campaign. So thank you so much once again. So we are grateful to our chief partner, Revered Dr. Justice Meena V. Gombo, for being the source of inspiration and motivation for organizing such kind of activities. I would like to express my sincere thanks to Professor Divakar Goli, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Raffles University. I extend my vote of thanks to active participants, guests, audience, and everybody who contribute in making this program materialized. Last but not the least, I would like to thank Mr. Grish Bhatia for his kind support for making this webinar successful. So finally, thanks a lot again once to everyone and wish you a very happy time. Goodbye. Take care.
Thank you, everybody, for your participation and for having us over.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.